scientific director of 6 projects at the Wuhan lab, directly funded by Obama and Dr. Anthony Fauci, has confessed on video to weaponizing 5 viruses in China and combining them into COVID-19. We're about to lay it out right now.
For 5 years, from 2014 to 2019, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which Tony Fauci runs and has for decades, pumped money to a group called the EcoHealth Alliance. The EcoHealth Alliance is run by a man whose name you may recognize, Dr. Peter Daszak. Daszak contracted with Dr. Shi to conduct gain-of-function experiments at the Wuhan lab. Daszak bragged about how easy it is to manipulate coronaviruses in lab experiments.
You can manipulate them in the lab pretty easily. Spike protein drives a lot of what happens with the coronavirus.
The gain-of-function research that Peter Daszak was bragging about in the video we just showed you had in fact been banned explicitly by the U.S. government. There was a federal moratorium on the funding of exactly the kind of gain-of-function experiments that went on in the Wuhan lab to disastrous effects. So why didn't the U.S. government halt its funding of the lab in Wuhan? Who signed off on this? Tony Fauci, possibly along with Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, invoked that special exemption in order to keep funding the Wuhan lab and the deadly experiments that were going on there. The experiments that clearly went so wrong. This wouldn't have happened if Tony Fauci didn't allow it to happen. That is clear. It's an amazing story. It is a shocking story. In a functional country, there would be a criminal investigation currently underway into Tony Fauci's role in the COVID pandemic that has killed millions and halted our country and changed it forever. So why isn't there a criminal investigation into Tony Fauci's role in this pandemic?
This is undoubtedly the biggest news we've ever broken in my 27-year history on air. Now, Tucker Carlson partially scooped us last night, which I am totally happy to do. I was up here at like 6:30. I was exhausted last night, and I told Rob Dew, let's do this in the morning. This story is so important. Let's come in and shoot a special report and then add all the documentation to this because it's so giant. And then I went home, turned on Tucker Carlson with my family, and watched him tell about 80% of the story. Then he pointed to a major report from a former top New York Times writer, Nicholas Wade, that is in thewire.in, because the New York Times obviously would not publish something this huge. And what does he break down from all the admitted evidence that we're about to lay out? The Wuhan lab was a joint operation between the Obama administration and the Communist Chinese, with Dr. Fauci running the operation. And that's what all the documents and all the admissions are. And then when it began to come out last year, they had the people that actually ran these projects at the lab write the Lancet study saying that there was no connection to the lab and putting out the fake information about the wet animal market. And so you've got them funding it, you've got them running it, you've got them trying to cover it up. But here's what's even more insane. Tucker only got to part of the interview with the main corporate manager of 6 of the gain-of-function weaponization of SARS COVID viruses. In the full interview he did in 2019, he actually admits that they were working on creating a super virus with all 5 viruses in it and how to infect humans so they could then create a vaccine for the threat. That's how bioweapon development works, is you get around international treaties and national laws by saying, oh no, we're not creating a bioweapon, we're creating horrible things in a lab that someone else might make so we can counter it. But nature would have never combined 5 viruses together. And CRISPR gene editing is dead on. The Indians own them, Europe owns them, the US, China, Australia, and it was 14, 15 months ago that major Indian Institute, very respected, scanned the virus and said, it's 5 viruses, it has HIV delivery system. You can see the P shuttle gene insertions where they spliced the viruses together. And so it was 100% Frankenstein. The discoverer of HIV, top virologist, he came out and said, I've looked at the scans, it's made in a lab. It's like you look at the space shuttle and you say humans made that, or you look at a skyscraper, that's artificial, compared to a blue whale. You know artificial when you see it. The science is 100%. So you've got Fauci and Bill Gates and Obama, when a lot of scientists in the U.S. complained about this at North Carolina Chapel Hill in 2015, saying that this is really dangerous, this is bioweapon development at these laboratories that don't have very high security, this is illegal. So they moved it to China, and of course the Chinese military was involved as well. But that's only part of the story. So I'm going to lay it out for you right now, and as Paul Harvey would say, give you the rest of the story of what Tucker Carlson's now talking about. And again, obviously with Dr. Francis Boyle that wrote the U.S. Biological Weapons Law and other experts over a year ago, we already laid this out. The point is that now we've got not a distant view of what happened, but a very close, detailed one, and all the pieces have come together. And it turns out the very individuals involved in this, as usual, were bragging about it before they decide to allow it to leak from the lab as an economic weapon to shut down the U.S., to win the trade war for communist China, and to throw President Trump out of office. So let's go through the evidence.
Wuhan scientists took the North Carolina SARS with gain of function, which is already a biological warfare weapon, and they took the technology here behind this well-developed SARS HIV weapon, and they all brought it back to the Wuhan BSL-4 and tried to DNA genetically engineer it into a chimera, into a biological warfare weapon involving the coronavirus, the HIV virus, and gain of function. Gain of function work can only be done safely in a BSL-4 or a BSL-3 facility. So I think clearly this is the smoking gun, and there is no legitimate scientific or medical use for gain of function technology, DNA technology on biowarfare agents.
So there's no excuse that it's a vaccine test that got out.
That's baloney.
Enter Peter Daszak, president of the Eco Health Alliance, that again, publicly was funded by the NIH in 6 major projects at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. That upset scientists in the U.S. They say it's violating the law, so Obama makes a deal with Wuhan, and they move it the next year to Wuhan, and the funding is public and moves over, and Anthony Fauci specifically signs off on it. Tucker Carlson covered that last night. His name is on the documents, on the signatures, to allow the development of weaponized gain-of-function bioweapons. Only way you can do it is if the head of one of the 2 infectious disease agencies, and Fauci headed up one of them, authorized it. Peter Daszak got $3,700,000 plus from the NIH, from Fauci, and from Bill Gates' subdirectorates to then begin to weaponize 5 different viruses that they harvested out of the wilds of China and other parts of the world to then fuse them into one. And incredibly, in an interview in December of 2019, he admitted it. Here's the video.
Then we started looking, where did they come from? And we went out to southern China and did surveillance of bats across southern China. And we've now found, after 6 or 7 years of doing this, over 100 new SARS-related coronaviruses, very close to SARS. Some of them get into human cells in the lab. Some of them can cause SARS disease in humanized mouse models and are treatable with therapeutic monoclonals, and you can't vaccinate against them with the vaccine. So these are a clear and present danger. Yeah. We've even found people with antibodies in Yunnan to SARS-related coronavirus.